Hey everyone, I'm Brendan Quinn here at the Michigan Union following Warde Manuel's official introduction as the 12th athletic director in Michigan athletics history. Nick, I guess your first impression. This wasn't it's not as if Warde Manuel got up there and said these are my plans for Michigan athletics. This was more of he kind of got up there. He named some names of people who have impacted him in his history, and it was kind of more of a celebratory thing than really kind of getting down to what has to happen at Michigan. But what were your first impressions of him specifically?
Yeah, he seems very comfortable. Obviously, he knows everybody. I mean, that was apparent. Everyone who was there knew who he was and was there for good reason. It was a full room, everything else. But I think really the takeaway, not just from what he said, but I think this comfortability speaks to this. And you mentioned it the other day. This is the first sitting athletic director Michigan has ever hired. They've been doing this since the 1800s, and this is the first time they've ever. And one of the regents told us this is the first time in maybe a couple decades they've actually gone out and really actually had a honest to God search to find a real athletic director. And I think that's important. I mean, this is a guy who knows the job, he knows what he's doing, he understands the responsibilities, he understands what this means. He's 47, he can be here for a long time. This was finally for Michigan. It seems like he's got to do it. He's got to prove it. Seems like the hire that finally could maybe give some stability to this athletic department for more than a cup of coffee.
Right. I mean, everything will depend on the quality of his decision making.
Right. He's got to prove it. Yeah.
That will be the mark of the quality of this hire. I think one thing, in terms of first impressions, it was very clear that I think he was proactive in acknowledging without acknowledging that he knows this place inside and out. I mean, he must have rattled off 100 different names of former teammates, former coaches, former administrators, former professors. He made it certain that this is a guy that gets this place, and he did so in a way that he didn't have to say, "I'm a Michigan man." He didn't have to lean on the cliche or lean on that, some of the stigma that comes with that, good and bad. He kind of presented it as this is actually who I am, and made it clear in that way.
Well, I think he's walking in with the, he's an AD. I mean, he's walking in without having to, I mean, he's got to prove himself in the job, obviously, but he doesn't have to prove that he's qualified for the job, if that makes sense. And I feel like every AD since Don Canham, and maybe even Don Canham, I guess, had to do that. Had to prove that they were qualified for the job. And I'm talking, this goes back into the 60s?
Yeah.
So, something like that. So it goes back forever and ever. And I think that finally they decided, and for whatever reason, and maybe it was just one of those things where it gonks you on the head and you say, okay, we got to go find an actual AD.
Yeah.
This was a guy who had basically crafted his entire career waiting for this job.
Yes.
Waiting for this opportunity. The minute they called him and said, are you interested? He was like, I will sprint there. I don't care. I mean, he's been basically working his whole life for this job and did it the right way and prepared for it. And I think that's valuable and notable.
It was very clear that he was groomed by many before him and was bright enough to really realize what was happening, and that there were in 2005. When it was suggested, go take that Buffalo job. You're going to need to be coach. You're going to need to be an athletic director, right? If you want to come back and get this job, and he did it, and now everything kind of came full circle today. Warde Manuel introduced as the 12th athletic director in Michigan history. It's a done deal, 5-year contract worth. You read the
$800,000 per year plus $100,000 deferred comp. He's going to pay pretty well.
Yeah, pretty decent. And that's it. That's it from Michigan Union. We'll see the next time when we get Warde Manuel. He doesn't actually start on the job until March 14th. So it'll probably be a little quiet on this front until then. So as always, thanks for watching. From Nick Baumgartner, I'm Brendan Quinn.
So this is my 4th year. So